Changing the call to order here. Everybody, welcome to a work session for the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for June the 11th. And we're going to call this meeting to order. We're going to call roll. Alderman Barnhill.
Here.
Alderman Blanton. Here. Alderman Caesar.
Here.
Alderman Peterson.
Here.
Alderman Berger.
Present.
Vice Mayor Brown.
Present.
Alderman Potts.
Present.
Alderman Baggett.
Present.
And the mayor's here too. So we have everybody present. Are there any citizen comments tonight? I have no speaker cards. Seeing none, we'll continue to move on. We'll go to item number 1, which is ordinance 2024-24 to add a new chapter 11 to Title 5 of the Franklin Municipal Code to create a billing and licensing document and an office of the billing and licensing director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, sorry. Good evening, everybody.
Good afternoon, good evening.
One of the elements of our fiscal 25 budget that you'll be considering tonight for public hearing and second reading relates to some adjustments in our organizational chart. And specifically, this item relates to reclassifying the office that we call Revenue Management Day today into a department. Which we would call the Department of Billing and Licensing. So this action establishes that department and also establishes the office of Billing and Licensing Director. So this does not have any real direct financial implications. It just modifies that, makes it a specific department. It does also encompass in the Office of Revenue Management, the city court operation. It's 19 employees total that are involved. So the size and scale of it, we felt warranted the classification of a department. Having that classification and having that director does take a little bit of workload off of Christine Brock, our Assistant City Administrator for Administrative Services and Chief Financial Officer. She fills that role of a department director for that group at times. Jessica Davey has done a great job leading that group, that office, and in this departmental role, she would be their department director. So this is part of that, and we would like to establish it in time for the new budget, which starts July 1 of 2024.
Questions, comments?
Comment is, I think Jessica's phenomenal. She's done a great job leading that group. I think that makes all the sense in the world.
Thank you.
Jessica should be directed to you.
No, she would still report to Christine,
Okay.
but she would have the authority of a director that'll helps her do certain administrative tasks because it's a standalone department with a director instead of having to rely on Christine to do some of those functions for her.
Alderman Berger, did you?
With this, it said financially wasn't no financial impact, but she's now a department director. Is that not?
Well,
increase
we've
somewhat?
evaluated the position. The function is not dramatically different. When we look at the compensation plan on a comprehensive basis in next year's budget
Okay.
cycle, I'm sure it'll get looked at there, but
All right.
the primary role has not changed,
Okay.
so we didn't modify the pay grade at this
Just for
stage,
now.
but it will be reviewed with
now.
the
Okay,
comp
great.
plan
Thanks.
update.
Item 2, Resolution 2024-44, resolution authorizing staff to pre-order certain equipment proposed to be appropriated in the FY25 budget.
So another item that ties into the new budget and what's recommended, and we've done this, gosh, the last several years where we've have larger equipment that has significant lead time. Not as many pieces of equipment this time around. We just have two, a stormwater vac truck and the platform truck for streets. So we would like your authorization to start that order now so that we can get the lead time for that going. So, Mark and
Yeah, the vac truck is approximately $500,000. The platform truck is about $180,000. So
And the lead time is,
we expect the vac truck to be over a year. The platform truck, it kind of depends on when you place the order. We're hoping to get it within 12 months, but it's questionable at this point. So that's why we've asked for these two items.
We'll look at item 3 and 4 together with contract 2023-0182 and also amendment 1 to that contract with PMA Management Group to extend third-party administrative services for the City of Franklin self-insured workman's comp program.
So this is a bit of a cleanup here. We awarded in 2020 a third-party administrator for our workers' comp program. We are a self-insured operation, and that was originally awarded as a 3-year contract with 2 one-year extensions. What we had done or anticipated doing in this fiscal year involved issuing a new contract for those extension years. That action did not get in front of you. It should have gotten in front of you earlier this year. So that's what item 3 is the formal approval of the contract that extends it for year 4 that had been anticipated with the original bid award. And then while we're at it, we're going to go ahead and do number 4 for next year, which is the amendment that allows for that 5th and final year of the arrangement for that third-party administrative service for our workers' comp. So it doesn't affect the cost. It's what we selected through the competitive process. We just needed to change the contracting arrangement, and our apologies, this should have gotten to you probably at the beginning of this year. It had been a long-standing arrangement, so I don't think no harm, no foul, but we typically want to get this to you ahead of the fiscal year, not during it, so. Kevin, anything else?
I think you actually did it all, so that's exactly what we're after, is to clean up and also have an extension for another year.
Okay, what you've been waiting for. City of Franklin Capital Investment Program.
Paul and Jonathan coming up. We wanted to, and I think Lisa too, so we have a whole gang here for you. We wanted to walk through where we are with the capital investment program. We had done an exercise with you to look at the priorities and if there were any items from the approved 10-year plan that you wanted to pull out and reconsider or reprioritize, looking at your overall capacity. So we'd like to walk through that. There are a couple decisions that seem clear from what you gave us. There are a couple that may be less clear, and we want to get guidance on where you want to go or what other information you might need to make those decisions. And so we would look at what kind of update we do to the capital investment plan and what capacity that provides for you to add or modify the projects in that plan, and then any other guidance you want to provide us as we look at that update and the capital needs that we see over the next 10 years. So Paul and company, you want to take it through?
Yeah, we'll go through the presentation first, and as Eric said, one of my big goals is to try to get this finalized, the existing projects. And why is that so important is right now we have at least 2 projects that are being stalled and not able to go into the right-of-way phase, and we either need to move forward with them in some way, shape, or form, or get other direction from the board. So we'll walk through the presentation briefly. So we're going to just review BOMA's rankings and discuss the projects, and then we'll have time for questions. This is the rankings from the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, and what I'm going to do is focus in on the projects that receive 4 votes for removal, which includes Long Lane and Old Peytonsville Road, Carlisle Lane, Greenway, Aspen Grove to Mac Hatcher, and the Lewisburg Sidewalk Project to Mac Hatcher. And so we'll move on to the next slide. And Michael Walters Young helped put this sheet together for us, and where this is really important, and especially I want to highlight the Lewisburg Sidewalk or Multipurpose Trail Project. You can see these projects on state routes where we're doing trails. We're really trying to get the design done, NEPA done, and then right-of-way acquisition, and then target them for some type of federal funding. Generally speaking, we can be pretty successful at getting 80% of that funding through the feds, although one of those trail projects received 5 votes, so I didn't know if that was something y'all may want to reconsider if we're going out, if you understand the funding source. So Michael put this cheat sheet together for y'all, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have associated with it.
So this is something you've asked us for in terms of differentiating the funding. So what we call internal is essentially local dollars, and then the external are the various grants or private dollars that we're leveraging from outside. Within the internal or the local dollars, there are some that are more specifically tailored to a project, like, for example, the Liberty Park enhancements. That's really pulling entirely from parkland money that's in that quadrant, or that, that area. So you're limited in where else you could direct those dollars. Others are much more flexible. So that's, as you get into more specific projects, that might be something to look at or think through. But this does help separate out where other dollars are coming into the projects that we have in the CIP. It doesn't. It shows local dollars, but those local dollars are very specific from Parkland. They're from that region. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Okay, we'll move on to the next slide.
A home raising project, through the Corps of Engineers. Do you think anybody else is going to get into that? Because most of the people that have that available are saying that they do not want to participate.
I would assume probably you'll have more people drop out than you would have add at this point. I think we're on, actually with the paperwork on House 5 or 6 at this point with
Okay.
paperwork-wise. I have to get back with our project manager, William Banks, but, so we are actively working with several property owners at this point.
Okay.
Is there a time, like a cutoff date, or is this just like an open, is this an open-ended thing? Because for the home raising project, because then that's one of these.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, the Army Corps is working through them one at a time as fast as they can. And the first one was the biggest challenge because they haven't done this program locally in a very long time. And so they're working through them one at a time, and I don't think there is a set time frame. But as soon as there's no more candidates, we're gonna conclude this project.
Thank you. Thank you.
Go ahead,
I
Alderman Caesar.
Just had a question about McEwen Phase 5. I know that McEwen Phase 4 has a significant amount of federal dollars in it. Is there a chance that federal dollars will flow into the Phase 5 program?
As it sits now, it's very unlikely because it really doesn't go anywhere. There's no logical terminus to it. It kind of stops at the middle of, at the city limits, so it doesn't go anywhere. So it's very unlikely that you would get federal funds for that.
That is one that is funded over half by the city of Brentwood.
Yeah, it's almost
About
60% of the city of
60%
Brentwood.
Brentwood
It's
is paying.
others.
Good point.
That was part of an agreement between the two communities in terms of that extension, resolve some issues. And so we've modified that over a number of years, and this is sort of the agreed to that it would follow on once we complete McEwen 4. This would go on, and like Jonathan said, almost 60% is paid for by Brentwood because about 60% of the road is in Brentwood.
That's
So,
correct.
it's a joint project.
And should note also that the gas line, you've funded the gas line, and of course, that's a joint effort as well. The gas line relocation, which was a major component, has already been completed. So that is done out there as well.
Any other questions before we move on? Okay. So Long Lane Old Peytonsville Road was adopted in the 2019 Capital Investment Program. This project received 3 out of 9 votes to be removed from our current CIP. One of the votes was actually voted to remove, but it stated in the comments that reduce the size of the scope of the project, not necessarily remove it. We spent approximately $5.3 million on it. And really, there's 2 phasing options. One is to build what you see in red. The other one would be to build what you see in red and yellow. Again, this project right now, we are ready to move into right-of-way acquisition. But we, as we always do, try to check in with the board to get direction to see how you want to proceed. So option 1, the full build's about $45 million. Option 2, the minimal build's about $28 million. So, I mean, I would ideally like to somehow bring this back forward to get direction on it so that it doesn't continue to sit stagnant.
This is, I think, what Paul was referring to in terms of one where we have staff kind of mobilized, but we need to know that the board is ready to go on this or not. And so you've really got 3 options. Do the full build as what's included in the plan today, this minimum build or reduced scope of project, or defer it and remove it from the 10-year plan. We need that direction, just because we've already spent $5 million. We're spending or will spend a lot more staff time, but we just want to have that guidance so that we are putting our time and effort in the right place in terms of delivering projects, because we really want to make sure we're following through on the plans that you've given us guidance on and directed us to put in place. So that's kind of where we are with this one. This is I guess our question for you is, are you comfortable making a decision, or do you need more information, or what else can we provide to facilitate that? Do you want us to bring a further resolution so that you can formally vote on it, or are you comfortable with how the preferences weighed out in our less formal survey to keep it on the plan in either option 1 form or option 2 form? So we're open to what you need to help make a decision on this, and we'll support however you want us to help you in that process.
Vice Mayor, I've got you first, and then I've got Alderman Berger.
I'm going to go the opposite direction, probably the way you want to go, but I toggled this one on and off multiple times. For me, it was, the reason I ended up not marking it as a remove was because I saw it as something that we might do into the future, but it definitely really fell on my priority list. I would say that over the last few weeks especially, or last month or so especially, as we, learned what our fate is with state funding, as we've learned, the Herculean, CIP list we have, this one just falls lower and lower on the priority list for me. I would add my vote to the remove list pretty solidly at this point.
Alderman Berger.
Okay, hold on. When you talk about minimum build, what does that entail versus the full build? Again, can you go through that?
Yeah, so if you look at the exhibit, what's in red is the minimum build. It's essentially getting the bridge constructed and then tying it back down to Long Lane, Old Peytonsville Road. And then we would also look to do the signal at Lewisburg Pike.
The signal, okay. I wasn't sure about the signal.
But it would be with minimal improvements at the intersection.
Okay. So what's the ramifications from that minimal improvement that we would, if we did the minimum build, what are the ramifications? What's the negatives of those?
The yellow sections, I mean, you're going to instantly see a change in traffic patterns, right? So the yellow sections that don't get improved won't have sidewalk, and it'll have increased traffic volumes. And so I think some of those residents would probably complain, but outside of that, I don't know that there is a major ramification. And you'd have those gap sections. Other than that, I don't think there is any major ramifications.
It would still include sidewalk on the city side, the south side, correct?
It would not entirely, no.
None of
It
the
would
yellow.
create a substantial
Okay.
gap.
Okay, I thought we had it all the way on
So the
south
only
side.
place you have residential in that area basically is on the left of the picture here.
Correct,
On the west side
correct.
of that stretch would be the only place where a sidewalk would mean anything. And where are these people going to go on the sidewalk? So if you put the sidewalk out, where are they going to go?
There is residential on both sides.
I know. So where are they going to go? But they're not on a sidewalk to go to any destination, correct?
Yeah, I don't disagree with you.
Okay.
Just
so
walking to
I'm
neighbors'
just-
houses and friends' houses.
I'm just, trying to drive the point home. Yeah, you can walk to your neighbor's house, you can walk your dog, but
You're not going to be walking across the
you're not.
bridge.
Yeah, you're not walking across the bridge, you're not walking someplace to go to the store. You're not in a setting out for a destination here. So I don't really have a problem with that. I don't know if I want to look at those pilings in any for many more years. And I'm wondering, are we going to create a bottleneck of traffic? I mean, how much traffic are we anticipating here that we would create bottlenecks on the yellow parts?
I mean, you're not really going to create bottlenecks because you're still going to have 2 travel lanes. You're just not going to have a center turn lane.
No center turn.
Correct.
No center turn lanes
you're gonna-
down by the residential.
And you're not going to have what we would consider our city standard lanes. So you're still going to have your 10.5-foot lanes out there versus our 12-foot lanes.
But it's a road, and people
Yes.
can get to it, and it's a
Correct.
sufficient road. And so where would the turn lanes would need to be would be actually at the residential areas, correct?
It would help with all the driveway cuts. With the volumes we're talking about, it would not be the end of the world
Yeah.
to leave the red or yellow part out.
So, okay, so if we did this and did the minimum build, we would have to come back and revisit doing the full build out at some other later date.
Correct.
And when we could do the minimum build and then put it back on the CIP for a full build out, projecting out so many years.
Correct.
Okay. I'm still gonna I'm still gonna go with the minimum 2 option, because I think we've got to learn in this city, we've got to move traffic. We have got to get connections. We have a policy for connectivity, and for some reason, we just never enforce it very much. And this is part of it, and I think that we have to worry about 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road about moving traffic and giving them connectivity. So I would go with minimum build on mine.
Alderman Blanton.
Just weighing in, I'm going to stick with my X on the Excel spreadsheet, 2 pages up. I think we have way too many other projects to expend this kind of money on this project. I know that we made a deal with TDOT that we will eventually is very open-ended, so I stick with my X.
I've got Alderman Baggett.
Is this a true minimum build? I mean, there's nothing more minimum than what I got here? No.
No.
Just really is cutting it to the
You gotta
bone.
make the bridge work.
Understood.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
pretty
think
much
it's
functionally makes the bridge work, and it's
makes
to
it
tie
work.
down. I mean, the one thing you can take out, other than what you're seeing to the right-hand side of the picture, you can take out the intersection improvements at Lewisburg.
No. So we've got to, I think, and what did it for me was the projected, and I know they're just projections of the traffic counts into the future. And I know that there are lots of different factors that could change those traffic counts. And I think we will make those decisions at the right time when those traffic counts prove to be more than, I think it was like 6,000,
That's about right, yeah.
you know, a day. And unfortunately, the cost went way out of whack. And if there's some more development or something on the east side that promotes this need even more, that would make that a higher traveled road, I think that's when we should do it. Right now, for the 45 million, for the full build out, and even the 28, and I look up at Southeast Park being $48 million. I mean, there's just a lot of need, and we gotta. I'll say it, is that the Mac Hatcher Northwest Second Bridge is just continue to bring up for us. Not that this would mean doing this doesn't mean we're going to do that, but we've got actual bridges today with tens of thousands of people on it every day that are failing, or the intersections are failing. So I would stick with my X as well on this.
Alderman Barnhill.
When we look at this and realize that this project here, a few years ago, was the #1 project. The #1 project for the board. And for the board at this particular time to be discussing dropping this off entirely I think it's irresponsible myself, personally. And I'm going to plug in a couple of things here. We had a $34 million little building project that on this is now $99 million. And then the other night, when we got ready to look at the garage and relocation of the employees, that was approximately 20. In the budget, it's 10.5. So that in itself is $8 or $9 million more than what's in this list that we've got right here now. And I think that when we had the room filled up full of Berry Farms people and Ladd Park, I think that's an injustice. And I think we're short-sighted, because this is where the growth is going. I don't necessarily know how many houses is going in there, or whatever else is going in there, but that growth is going south along 65, probably on the east side, and it'll go to 840 more than likely. That's where your growth is going. That's the reason this was put in here several years ago, the fact that we recognized that. And some of us were on the board then when this was the #1 project. I think it was, well, as a matter of fact, I think if you go back and look, it was solid 8 aldermen that listed this as the #1 project. And I just think it's, I think it's short-sighted to be looking at this as an opportunity to do something else, when I don't think there's anything else much more important than this, unless you can put it on the McHatcher or Columbia Highway, which is funded supposedly, or some other project where it eliminates or helps in the traffic. But that area right there is going to be where the growth goes. And I think it's irresponsible for us to be looking at this and have not done it. Well, I guess we've done a little something on it, but not gotten far enough along for you to feel comfortable that that project has been approved as far as the budget's concerned. So those are my comments. I may have some more in a few minutes, but I'll let it go with that.
I got Alderman Potts and Alderman Caesar, and then I'll weigh in too.
Sure. I had the opportunity, I don't know how many of my fellow board members have driven Long Lane regularly, but this morning I had the chance to go over to a swim meet in the Ladd Park subdivision and watch a bunch of little kids swim around a pool for a couple of hours. And the road there is not perfect, and it certainly is a dangerous curve. I don't know that I could convince anyone that Long Lane, even at 9 o'clock or 8:30 when I was driving, there were cars on the road, and I've been driving a long time, and I didn't feel overly comfortable. I think while I wasn't a part of the board that put this as the #1 unanimous project, however many years ago that was, I am a part of the board today, and I know that we've spent $5 million, more than $5 million doing the background work here. Now, I'm not one to chase bad money or good money with bad money, but I think, as Alderman Barnhill has stated, if you look, you don't have to be in a helicopter or an airplane to see, even though there was flying overhead this morning, you don't have to be in a helicopter or an airplane to see that there's a lot of raw land over there that's probably going to become something in the not too distant future. And I think staff has shared with us that if this road were approved unanimously today to move forward, it would be 2028 before the first car traverses this bridge. Is that fair?
That's a fair assessment.
I think this is an opportunity for us to acknowledge that growth is moving in that direction. I think it's an opportunity for us to acknowledge that we need to provide not only the folks that live in Ladd Park, who would probably say it's too late. I'd love to be a part of building a project that facilitates the intentional growth that we're expecting in this community. I don't think that option 1 would be a proper or prudent use of our taxpayer dollars, especially given the number of other projects in other areas of the city that are important. I do think that we should consider ways in the yellow portion, particularly that's between Lewisburg and Old Paytonsville, to look at some way to make that road, to ensure that portion of road is safe for the people that live both in the Berry Farms area and for the residences on the north side. I agree with my colleague Alderman Berger in saying, well, I'm not interested in building sidewalks to nowhere. I do generally care a lot about walking and bikeability. I think there is an option for you to get across the road and get into Berry Farms for those few homes there safely, if need be. But I would like for us to consider some way to potentially reduce the risk of the residents who live in that residential area in Berry Farms from having high-speed traffic kind of zipping down their streets, and encourage them to use the Old Paytonsville connector to get into the commercial areas of Berry Farms.
Alderman Potts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I look at this, number one, yeah, this is my ward, but I look at everything across Franklin as ours. So I'm not just looking at this for my ward. What I am looking at is the number of meetings that I have had with the HOA presidents and concerned citizens on the east side of 65, that the majority, if not all, have said, we need this now, because if we don't do it now, we're going to punt it down the road, and it's going to be another decade to 15 years before we bring it back around. That's their concern right now. Now, with that, Michael, if I could just verify, if we do option 1 and we do the full build-out, that is in the budget, correct?
Referencing the sheet that we just looked at, it is programmed within your CIP. So
Yes.
it would be $12.7 million in cash, $32 million in debt, utility adjustments, or succinctly, Yes.
That's budget for yes.
Thank you,
Excuse
Michael.
me, say those numbers again, do you mind?
Yeah,
Paul, can you go back up one?
I believe it's one slide
Yeah.
earlier.
But it was,
So that's $12.7 million from various cash
Michael, for
sources.
for those that are at home, this is in the first red section on the
Okay,
second
so-
line.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Under the, we have categorized your CIP in 5 categories. This is under what we would call design/committed,
okay,
depending upon the outcome of this conversation.
all right, got it.
Thank you. So this is where I lean in when I hear that, and our financial experts are here. And then Alderman Barnhill makes a comment that 4 of the 8 that are sitting here right now unanimously voted multiple times to have this as the #1 CIP project. When this was in committee, and I met previously with former Alderman Dan Klatt, he was on the committee, chaired the committee, and it passed unanimously in the committee. And here we find ourselves reevaluating this. But I'm not going to say that I'm not ignorant and sit here and say that the state has put us into this position. The state has done this. Now, with that being said, if we look at option 2, which the short answer right here, Michael, is if I asked you if this was also in our plan, the answer is yes, correct?
Yes.
And that's a thumbs up for everybody at home right now. So I've spoken, and a lot of the concern that has been expressed by the constituents in the area have come from Berry Farms, respectively. And I was on the phone today with Don Harlan, who's our HOA president. Have great respect for everybody that's in that neighborhood, want to protect that neighborhood, and have spoken with engineering on how do we prevent cross-traffic that's going to come across that overpass and turning into Berry Farms. So when I look at option 2, and I look at the yellow part, I want to be assured that #1, cross-traffic turning left into Berry Farms is an option for this. And then I have a follow-up question. So can we say that at this time? Do we have the plans far enough along that we could say there's no left turn going into Berry Farms?
With, right now, the way the plans are designed, there would still be left turns into Berry Farms. So the way they're sitting right now, that's not a hard change. So with it being, and this would be for the full design. With the option, with the minimum design, we're not touching the sections right there in front of Berry Farm, so we wouldn't be going that far. So it would still be a 2-lane road. We wouldn't be touching it.
There's not a dedicated turn lane.
What we
Correct.
could do
Correct.
is look to put in a right in, right out if the HOA wanted it. I don't see
That-
that being detrimental to anything.
Could you speak up for those that couldn't hear us?
We would basically put in so where we had the 3 lanes, if we were to build the 3 lanes there or build a turn lane there, we would actually put in a median barrier there. So it would actually prevent a turn in there. However, what that also does, if you prevent left turns in, you're also preventing left turns out from the neighborhood. So they would not be able to use the left turn out.
Okay.
So that's comes with that.
So that's a design concept that if we
Correct.
move this forward with option 2, for example, or option 1, but let's just stick with option 2 for now, that is a design concept that we could actually take to that constituency and Berry Farms and say, which do you prefer, A or B?
And that's a 5-minute design change.
Thank you very much. Second thing that I want to know is this. If we do put that in, and I know we've got Assistant Fire Chief King in the back, and not to call him out from the back row, but I do want you to know, I was thinking about this. If we prevented this left turn in, would we have fire or police, emergency responder concerns being able to access Berry Farms without having to go all the way down, do a U-turn, come all the way back in, since the closest fire station that we're trying to connect to is right there by the Ag Center?
Yes, but we can actually make it rolled curb, so it would not be vertical curb. It can actually be mountable curb, so a fire truck, which is a larger vehicle, can actually roll over that curb.
Okay.
So they would just slow down at the curb, roll over it, or prior to the curb, they can just cross over into the opposite lane and make the turn.
Okay. So emergency services wouldn't be impacted. We'd be able to prevent turns into Berry Farms with
Correct.
that as well. And the minimum build, as we were all referencing right here, I want to take us down to the intersection of where this red T occurs at Lewisburg And someone had made the comment that said it would not be a full build-out at that intersection. Can you help us understand that more?
So what we would do, we would plan for the signalization there. Obviously, we're working with Adam to make sure, and have you checked with him whether that meets warrants currently? And obviously, it currently doesn't. Projected it does. So we would not widen out fully the intersection. Again, we're trying to save money with the minimum build, so we would not widen out northbound or the northern section of Lewisburg Pike. We obviously wouldn't widen that out to 5 lanes. If you're driving that section right now, you can see the section in front of Berry Farms is widened out and it just kind of bluntly stops.
Right.
And connects to a 2-lane section for all intents and purposes. We would widen that out far enough to get a left turn lane into Old Paytonsville Road, and we would most likely put an additional turn lane in on Old Paytonsville Road, so you'd have a left turn and a right turn out.
So anybody coming over the overpass, continuing westbound, you would have a right turn and a left turn dedicated. And at this point, there's no need for
The dedicated left turn lane onto Old Paytonsville Road headed southbound.
Okay. So if they're left dedicated, that's coming from Henpeck, if you will.
That's
coming
correct.
south after Henpeck.
Correct.
You'll have a dedicated left turn lane that would then take those residents who are trying to get across the overpass.
Yes.
Without impeding the traffic there.
That's correct.
And so just for everybody going northbound on that map as well,
Yes.
if they were going north and approaching to make the right-hand turn, you're saying that there would be enough space there to add a dedicated turn lane where they could get in the right and then
That is already there today.
already there today?
Yes.
So that,
You have a channelized right turn lane there today.
okay.
Just to be really clear, our traffic engineer has said that there is a signal warranted based on the Goose Creek model. Day one is what he has made
Day
that
one.
determination, yes.
So when we go into day one, are we thinking that before the overpass is complete, that lighted
Yes.
intersection would be in place?
This project,
We would build it with this project.
option 2 includes
Right.
signalizing that intersection.
Yes.
That's
at
what I'm
Lewisburg.
saying, but are you saying we would do that
Part of the
as
project.
Yes.
first, is what I'm saying?
No.
Part of the project.
Yeah, it's
Just part of the
yeah, Yeah,
project.
it would not be first. It would be part of the project.
Okay.
Because it does not warrant it before the project.
And so, again, as we're looking at this, these are the questions that have been brought forward to me from Berry Farms residents. They want to protect that, and if we're looking at the yellow line right there, that long yellow line, they want to make sure those homes are protected. And no left turns are coming in, there's not going to be, it meets the emergency needs. I do want to ask this question, because this one came up as well. From Lewisburg to the overpass, what would be the speed limit?
I believe it is shown currently, it's either 35 or 40, because our standard speed is 40 miles an hour for an improved roadway. We'd have to look at that if we do the minimum build, because you have an existing roadway, we'd probably take that down to 35, just to be on the safe side.
Okay. All right. So these are a lot of the questions that we're getting, and then the follow-up on this one is, when you go over the overpass, or excuse me, before you go over the overpass, we're all looking at the map where it comes southbound on parallel to the interstate is what that would be doing.
Yes, sir.
That yellow, or that connection right there, if you came over the overpass going west, you made the right, and then it, if you will, it hooks around.
Yes, sir.
That then connects to Old Paytonsville Road, which is a frontage road.
The current road, yes, sir.
Thank you. And that would then lead to the front. And I know that there's some commercial that's going, existing commercial
Yes, sir.
that's going in as well. Does that connect to the front of Berry Farms as it's currently designed?
No, it does not.
Or-
Let me,
5 mile crossing.
yeah, it goes to 5 Mile Crossing, yes, that's correct. It does, it goes down to the bridge down there where the old Goose Creek Inn was.
Thank
It's,
you.
it's that side connection.
And it is, so that also allows residents coming from the east side over to take that frontage road
Yes.
without having to go into and occupy any of
Yes.
that going towards
Yes.
Lewisburg.
Yes.
Yes, that's
I'm
correct.
working through all of these questions because this is what people need to know. And as my peers are sitting here and they're looking at this and other boards have unanimously voted on this, these are the decisions and the questions that have been raised previously.
Yes.
So now, as we look at that, one of the things that I'm also looking at, and I'm glad that we've actually got a representative here from Bike Walk Franklin, because one of the issues that we had is when we've had bikers who have wanted to congregate and enjoy the restaurants in the area right now, The only way out, especially with a large group, was with a police escort. That was the only way to get bikers and walkers, and in this case, it was all bikers, to the other side to get to the Ag Center. In this case, it gives us another option to safely move people over the interstate using the overpass.
Yep,
So,
it's true.
as we also look at this, I want to point out that there are still multiple ways to get across the interstate. We still have Goose Creek. We still have Highway 96. If memory serves me right, when we did the previous presentation, on the low end, I think we were looking at about 3,000 cars.
Correct, initially.
Initially, thank you.
Correct.
So would you expand on that for everybody that's at home or here in the audience?
So the projections that Adam performed, but using the various development studies in the area and the tools we have available, he said that when we open the project initially, day one, we expect to see about 3,000 cars a day. And that's, of course, that's bi-directional traffic on the roadway. And then at full build out, based on all the projections we've seen in the area, all the developments that we know of currently today, we'd see 6,000 to 7,000 cars a day on the roadway, bi-directional.
And how far down the road is that approximately?
I don't recall that off the top of my head. Paul may
It
remember
could be
that.
another 10 years, 15 years.
It really
just-
depends on when development occurs, how quickly it takes to build out everything in the area.
So is there an example that you could equate that 3,000 cars to right now? Any other road or overpass or street that we have here in the city?
I'll-
I want to say
No.
Baker's Bridge is about 10 to 12.
10 to 12?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Baker's.
that sounds about
10
right.
10 to 12,000 per day?
Yeah,
And we're only talking 3
Yeah.
correct,
okay.
Well,
initially.
Initially is what we're looking at.
With
Over
full
10
build-out.
10 to 15 years, we could be at the same number.
with full build out, I think it'd be more than that.
Well,
time.
looking at the traffic we had a couple of days ago, I'd say they looked like it must have been 10,000 waiting to go across the railroad track out on Third Avenue.
I believe,
Well, it was blocked.
that section of Murfreesboro Road is about 10,000 cars a day.
At least, maybe 12.
And further out on Murfreesboro Road, the main corridor of 96 is about 20,000 a day.
I won't, may I, Mr. Potts, you made reference to something that I've just picked up on. You said the state was the cause of this. What did you mean by that?
It's become the reallocation of funds, and that's actually where I'm headed with this, is with the state changing the process in which we are no longer on their top 10 list and getting our projects done right now. And so, because of that, what I'm actually going to recommend is that we go with option 2, and that's what we've been talking about for the most part right here. Taking option 2 and taking those funds that are listed there, it's approximately $17 million, and taking and improving intersections that are state-specific. And I'm going to give a couple of examples. The first is Mac Hatcher and Lewisburg. If we were to take and present those and improve that intersection by increasing turn lanes and increasing it for traffic flow, you can also look at Mac Hatcher and Royal Oaks. We can run down a list that would positively impact Lewisburg, the entire stretch of Lewisburg right there, and also positively impact by making those improvements that connect then to Highway 96 at Mac Hatcher, Lewisburg, connecting up to Highway 96, getting on the interstate. By improving those intersections, it's then having a positive impact on this overpass as well as having a positive impact on Goose Creek. So there's a lot of opportunity to take the allocated funds that Michael just verified that are already budgeted and improve these state intersections. Now, if there's an opportunity for us to get some type of a credit with the state, I would bring that back to our city administrator and to our staff to see if that is. I don't believe that there is. However, we need to find out, and I think this is a way for us to move it forward. That's why option 2 is appealing to me, and it's also why option 2 is appealing to those residents that are on the east side, because as Alderman Barnhill said, all the growth, not all, we'll say a lot of the growth is following that 65 corridor. We've got to be prepared for it.
So are you suggesting then that we don't? So you suggested that all that you've suggested comes out of the $28,200,000?
I'm saying we have to
20
start somewhere, and that 17,500 could be allocated to those intersections, and even if it is
From option one.
from option one,
And leave
The
option
difference.
2 and put the 17 million on other intersections.
yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That is what I would propose if we were moving this forward.
I'd like to address it just a minute if I could,
Please.
but since everybody else has had an opportunity to speak that wanted to speak. But first of all, I've never been a huge fan of revisiting prior boards' decisions.
Amen.
I think that puts us in a difficult situation. We've already spent $5.3 million on this project, and because it was the #1 project, and it's been moving forward, and we're now to a point where we need to do something. But I think back on Carruthers Parkway, and I think about the board at that time, that we were really, really struggling with that because Carruthers was a real curvy, dangerous road. It was another McEwen, so to speak. And I remember that one of the aldermen, who happens to be to my left, Alderman Barnhill, pushed really hard for us to build Carruthers. And I think that's a similar situation that we're in now as we make this decision. You know, I'm 2028, if we start it now, if we put this off, right now, we're looking at a 10-year window for projects. So that means that in 2038, the next board's going to be considering this again. So I like option 1, but I understand that if we're looking for a little more capacity, option 2, we could do that. Because it's going to be a long time before we do anything else down there if we do this. So I'm for continuing to move forward. I think if there's a consensus on 2, I'll jump on board with that. So, did you want to make one more comment,
yeah,
Alderman Berger?
One of the problems with, by the way, well said, Mr. Mayor, I think that's excellent points, and Jason, excellent points, and Clyde. I mean, all of you have, this is what I love about the discussion, because we learn a lot of things from each other, and we have a lot of different points that we can make that we really need to chew on and think about, because it's important how we end up responding to this. But if we did take some money to improve, like Matt Catcher and Lewisburg, Matt Catcher and Royal Oaks, one of the problems with Royal Oaks is we've got a huge wall of rock.
And I know staff is looking
Yeah.
at some potential intersection improvements at those 2 intersections, and I don't think we're ready to see what they're doing yet. I think
No.
they're still
We're far
going through
from
that
that, but
process.
I just want to mention one thing. We had looked at possibly using the shoulders in that area, but it brought it too close to the rock walls, of the rock, rather, and we weren't able to do that. TDOT wouldn't allow us to do it. So we have a lot of problems and a lot of challenges over there at Royal Oaks because of that, all that rock. But I'm certainly not opposed to taking it and using it to also facilitate getting our traffic moving in these other intersections. I'm with Ms. Mayor. I would prefer to jump in and do the whole thing with option 1, but there are good arguments for doing option 2, and I, as I stated before, I would do with that.
Mr. Mayor, let's just a second. Okay, if I could just add to what Alderman Berger said. Alderman Berger, my recommended improvements that I would ask city staff to do would not include those granite or those walls, but rather it would be between the end of that and the corner where the Forest Crossing sign is. There's a lot of space there where we would have to buy, there's enough for an entire lane
Yeah.
to be a nonstop,
Yeah.
don't stop, keep on going type of a lane.
Yeah, absolutely.
several of those now.
Mr. Mayor,
think
could I-
that- go ahead,
Let me
Mr.
touch on
Stuckey.
this a little bit, since you talked about this in terms of other intersection improvements along Matt Catcher in particular. We are preparing, and we've done some outreach with TDOT on some spot improvements that would improve intersections along that southeast corridor. Those would be ultimately throwaway improvements when southeast is widened. So we need to be thoughtful about that. We're trying to get more guidance, understanding of how TDOT is approaching these projects and how we best leverage dollars. So I would want to continue to pursue, if that 17.5 or some portion of that moves the needle in terms of the broader improvement that is the state's responsibility, I would like to still pursue that too. And we can kind of go in parallel, but we will have a project that would get at those intersections that could be considered as part of your updated CIP. But I'd also like the ability to keep looking at if those dollars are better targeted towards a partnership with TDOT that we
Right.
continue
Good
to look at.
point.
We
Good
continue to have the freedom
Partnership.
to look at that. It's still a bit of a black box. We continue to look at what that could be, and we'll keep working on that. And I know Paul's had some discussion with TDOT. We're looking at some other dialogue with them on those types of improvements, as well as keeping Columbia moving, as well as what this could look like. So just, I would keep all those options open at this point. If you did free up that capacity, it would go into the broader prioritization, and that could be part of what you would consider. So I think that's where I would suggest, if you go down that path, how we look at targeting those dollars, putting it in the full mix, but having this be an option, and continue to have some dialogue with TDOT about how this might play out.
You ready to keep moving on the slide presentation?
Yes, sir. All right, moving to the next slide is Carlisle Lane. It received 9 out of 9 votes. I'm just going to ask if there's any questions. I'm assuming that this.
Sounds like that one gets pulled out.
Yeah, that obviously
Yeah.
needs to.
Move on, okay. That's what I thought. Next one, and Lisa's up here.
That one was easy.
Lisa's up here for this one, is the trail from Aspen Grove to Mac Hatcher, added in 2019 to our capital investment program. Received 5 out of 9 votes. I did want to point out that Legends View and the Haven at Cool Spring is actually building a section of this trail. It is a really, in staff's viewpoint, it's a very important trail because it connects the Mac Hatcher Trail system to the Cool Springs area. And we can certainly have it reprioritized. We redid the cost because two of the developments there are building that trail. We think it's about $3.45 million. And Lisa, am I missing anything that you'd like to add?
I think since we brought this before you is with the city making the acquisition of the property at Mac Hatcher and Franklin Road, and potentially of even Roper Snob, you've got some property on the other side of Mac Hatcher. So allowing us at least to look at maybe grants or public-private partnerships with this one, we believe that might come into play a little bit more since we've made these connections to historical parks, important resources in the community that we didn't have 6 to 9 months ago.
One of the things, not just this project, but there's that group that are trail and connectivity type of projects that are in the bottom part of that. And there were 3 votes, this one had 5. What might be a good approach overall is for us to do at least kind of a schematic design component or preliminary design that allows us to be ready to go for a grant opportunity.
If
Because we're
something
seeing that
comes.
happen. It happened on 96 West with that trail. It happened with the pedestrian bridge, to the point that we started with one piece and then we got another, and it ended up being probably 80% funded by state enhancement dollars. So I think it would be wise with this project and the others that are at that bottom to maybe give you an option that is, let's get it to the appropriate design stage, that then we could look at the right grant opportunity, because these seem to be out there. And if we can fill that void, that could be really beneficial to us, but we've got to have enough of a design that we can put it on the table.
And the
So we
design
could
isn't
maybe
all
give
that
you,
much.
yeah, it's not real expensive. We could give you a number that maybe gets design done for that group of projects, and maybe prioritize within those, and then be ready to go with grant opportunities, if you're open to that approach.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
I just have one question, Eric. Is there a benefit of doing a bucket of greenway-type projects for a grant? Does that qualify you more for a grant?
It depends on what the grant is. They usually, I mean, you can submit multiple, but a lot of times it's the project or there's a specific criteria that a grant's looking for, whether it's on the historical side or connectivity along some type of natural resource.
And a good example would be, for instance, of the TAP program, the Transportation Alternatives Program that we submit for with TDOT. In the past, they used to cap that generally just because they tried to spread the funding around as many agencies as possible. They typically capped that at $1 million or $1.5 million. So what they tried to do was, you could submit a large project, and we did this on 96 West. We submitted from downtown to where our trail stopped at Vera Valley Drive. Well, when we submitted that, we only got partial funding. We got the first $1.5 million, thereabouts, I think $1.8 million. And we submitted it, and they said, well, here's what you've got this time around. So we said, okay, we'll phase the project. And we submitted the next round and got additional funding the next time around and just called it a phased project, and we added the funding to the project. And what we've been told is they're going to try to actually start giving larger chunks of funding now because they just can't find the smaller agencies that are able to actually utilize
I
the
suppose
funding
that was the
sources.
root of my question,
Yes.
as these greenways and these park and connectivities for Bike Walk Franklin, et cetera, are critical, I think, as our community continues to grow. If we have a bigger project that's, say, roughly 15 million, does that qualify in a different category? And if it does, then fantastic, let's go
We
for
can
that.
submit it and then work with them to phase it appropriately
Yes.
is typically what we would do.
Alderman Baggot.
We don't have a problem asking for money.
This would be Parkland impact fees that would be paying for most of this?
This particular one, yeah, it definitely it would apply to that.
Would qualify for
It
it?
would qualify, correct.
Because this is what, each one of these, like, there are needs here, but the problem is there's more needs than money. Right?
Never heard that.
Always. Something to live by.
Always. One of the,
But when I look at this, I look at this and I look at $3.5 million in Eddie Lane's, $11 million, and we've got these other things that are really, not that I don't want to do this, I do want to do this, but there's also sidewalks on Cool Springs. I'm good with there's sidewalks on Cool Springs Boulevard, there's the new development there that will tie into the Cool Springs sidewalks that you can get across the multi-use path. That's not the long-term vision of our trail network, is to be sidewalks on major thoroughfares. But we also have to figure out, so I would, if this revised item that you're talking about did design, and maybe even some right-of-way, looking into that, getting it to the next step where it is kind of shovel-ready.
Kind of grant ready, yeah.
But we can look at it in the future. I just don't, what happens is if we leave the $3.5 million, it's just taking away from if we leave the 2.7, it takes away from what we feel like our capacity is somewhere else.
For other projects, yeah.
So it's just kind of the optics of how we're viewing the numbers then. And I don't think we need to stop this project. We just need to get it to a point where we're comfortable. I don't know that, I think I'd rather have the 2.7 on some of these other projects that, have been brought to our attention than this right now. But that's my 2 cents.
Alderman Berger.
We're going to get some parkland dedication fees from a lot of that development along Cool Springs.
Correct.
Coming in.
correct.
And then we also have some development going to happen on Jordan Road, a development down there. I don't know how much we'll get from that, but we'll get something. And we have some major development along with Cool Springs. So isn't that money going to be able to come into this?
It can. It's just applying it to this.
Yeah, that's not been applied yet.
Correct.
So we have to remember that.
Exactly. Just to go back about 15 to 16 years ago, we did have a development that walked through the door for this particular area that that they wanted to pay for the whole thing. And so we would have had it constructed at that time through the Parkland program. It's not the same programs we have today. We either took land or we took funds. It was not on a CIP at that time. And so the board decided these are our priorities, that is not. So therefore then, take the funds and we will look at this later. We are later. And so having it just at least, if you can, to look at that schematic design, because once it's taken off, it's not that this board doesn't allow us to bring products and opportunities back to you, but when you look at grants and you look at leverage for dollar or other opportunities, having it somewhere in a plan is important. And I think Eric's suggestion of being at least get to schematic design helps us make those opportunities happen for you and for our community.
Well, sometimes if it's not on the list, we're not eligible for the grant.
Correct. Correct, because they do want to see that it's on in some type of
would not
approved
Typically,
list.
yeah, typically, one of the first things in any grant application
Yeah,
is it on one of your long-range plans, or is it
Or
on
the
one of
top.
your approved plans? Yeah.
Yeah,
So we could put it on the plan as a design project.
yeah.
And have it
I don't want to remove it.
awaiting a
I
grant, the
certainly
right
don't wanna
grant
remove it.
opportunity, so, yeah.
Ready to look at the next project?
Just real briefly, this is pretty much the same thing. I am positive that we can eventually get funding for this, 80% funding for this through TDOT or through the MPO, one way or another, but I would recommend the same thing, is to receive 4 out of 9 votes, but to keep it on the design list, to get the design done and go through NEPA and potentially right away.
About having a sidewalk down so that people could walk, say, from even the Carter House, down to Carnton, but not all the way down to McHatcher.
And this would be what we would consider like the third phase on the Lewisburg Pike, Lewisburg Avenue sidewalk/trail. The second phase would be from where we stop on the one we're currently, well, we just acquired the right-of-way, where we're going to begin construction here shortly. The second phase would be from where we stop at that one, which is the Husky Lumber entrance, down to basically Carriage Park. And then this would be
Right.
the third eventual phase.
Yeah, because down so that people could actually go between,
Yes.
the two
Yes.
big important.
And I agree with you. It's one of the things I've mentioned internally was until McHatcher until there's a trail down there to connect to, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to connect that unless the funding just becomes available.
Yeah, right.
Alderman Potts.
Thank you, sir. So just for clarification, everybody at home, Phase 1, Phase 2 meet the need coming from downtown, over the railroad tracks, past Husky, and gets us to Eastern Flank. Done,
Correct.
correct?
And Phase 2 is the one that's slated for construction shortly. Phase 1 is. Phase 2 has been preliminarily designed, but not finally designed or right-of-way.
Okay, all right, good. So,
Those two are more important.
yes, those are the two more important to make that connection. So yes, I would support keeping this on the design side so that if we can find a grant somewhere in the future, that would be great. Obviously, we're hoping that it would connect to something good down there at McHatcher and Lewisburg.
And there's
Alderman?
several grant programs that this would fit, TAP grant, multimodal access grant. There's several grant programs this would fit.
Alderman Blanton.
This feels like deja vu, and I don't remember, so I need you to be my memory. Years ago, when we talked about doing sidewalk and/or trail on Lewisburg Pike, we originally were going to stop at the eastern flank or somewhere about that. And I said, let's go ahead and design it all the way to McHatcher. And I believe we passed that. And so now I feel like we're piecemealing it, which is fine. I get it, phasing. We get projects done that way, but wasn't this already approved to do the design all the way to McHatcher?
We do.
Or did I dream that?
No, ma'am. You have the preliminary design all the way to McHatcher. We have a set of plans for this.
Okay, then why is design listed in part of the?
It's not a final construction set of plans, it's preliminary design. So when the decision was made to advance the first phase to coincide with Water Management's grant program,
Okay.
to redo the lines internal downtown, and we wanted to advance the sidewalk section quicker than what we had originally planned, to make sure that we're only digging up Lewisburg's Avenue internal to the railroad tracks one time. We focused more attention on getting that section done initially than the whole project design.
So some design has been done already on this
Yes.
phase 3?
So we know,
But not-
yes, ma'am,
But not target, like, pull the trigger ready?
that's correct,
So the $600,000 left in design and planning is what's left to make it more complete?
correct,
Not already on a spreadsheet as invested?
correct.
Okay. See why I was confused? Thank you.
Are we ready to move to item 6?
Mr. Mayor, let me
Sure.
propose where I think we are. What I'd like to look at doing is kind of tie this all together in terms of what those adjustments might be. And I would look at, first of all, your existing CIP has about $35 million of unprogrammed funds in it. So you've got that as a starting point. We remove Carlisle Lane. That's a $20 million project. If you went to option 2 on Lewisburg, and I understand that's a close vote, but I've been counting. If we did that, that frees up about $17.5 million. And then there's some degree of savings in doing the trail design and maybe a limited right-of-way that gets those, what we call grant-ready. There'd be some savings within those because we anticipated construction for that whole group. So that would probably give you a capacity of between 70 and $80 million of unprogrammed funds in your 10-year CIP. What we could do is authorize those modifications to the 10-year CIP and then have discussions about how to allocate that 70, $80 million. There also could be further discussion on if you want to look at, in next year's budget, how we create some capacity to do more. That's another option for you. That's probably a further different discussion, but one could lead to the other. But I would propose that we maybe bring you a update to the CIP that at least encompasses what I described, that would maybe free up $70 to $80 million of capacity within what you've got on the plan today, and then talk about, beyond that, maybe some other broader policy direction on capacity and how we might partner with other projects that are either in your CIP or could involve the state looking at expansions of their network with us leveraging dollars. Would that be something you'd be ready to consider if we brought that forward next time around?
Before I say, yes, that'd be great, but the 70, 80 million, will you
Yeah, let me walk through
ballpark that again?
Yeah.
I got 40, so.
So you start with 35 that you have in the plan today.
Oh, gotcha, that's what
Then you add 20 from Carlisle. You add 17 and a half from Long Lane. So that takes you to 72 and a half. And then I'm ballparking what might happen from the trails. That's where I get 70 to 80.
That's assuming we,
You got them with the 35
Yeah, the
up
35
front.
that was in the back pocket there.
I just think, I think that sounds great, but that's assuming that we still want to spend $30 million on 3,000 cars to go over the interstate at Long Lane in 2028. And I think that's I know, I think.
I heard the votes.
Well, we didn't take a vote. So.
That's what I'm
it's kinda
forcing
what
the
we're go-
issue on that.
Yeah, I know.
To
That's
have
good.
you all make a decision so that we know what we're building. But if you're not comfortable with that, tell us what else you need on that aspect to make that decision, or I'm just trying to advance it so that we can look at what other projects could get funded and also keep staff working on what the priority projects are.
What was the cost of Long Lane overpass when it was 8-0?
About this, 20,
About the same,
22,
right?
Yeah,
25.
I would say 22.
Close.
Yeah,
That
so
one-
it's pretty close to
It
the
was like
28.
22.
It was, yeah, I think it was the 28.
It was about 22, 20, it was about the
And
same.
to be
like that.
fair, we expanded the project because we saw the opportunity to improve the intersection more, to add the sidewalk. So there was inflation, but there was also us looking at it and saying, well, while we're at it, let's make it work the best way we can. So there's a combination of things that brought that cost up higher.
That's correct.
Yeah, I would
Alderman
just offer that we're actually, and you know this, we're not building for 2028. We're not building this for, you know this, we're not building this for 2028. 2028, we're
That's
not
when-
building.
You're building,
Yes,
the
correct.
future.
Oh, I see
We're
what you're saying.
building for the capacity that's coming,
Yes.
because we're not going to go back and say, whoops, whoops. The other thing is, TDOT, we made the deal with TDOT to put that in there. It saved us a
We
heck
did
of a
make a
lot of money.
commitment, yeah.
Saved us a lot of money to have them put that in there when they were doing 65. So that was,
Yeah, those bridge
That was
supports
a
were
gift.
put in by TDOT at no cost to the city.
That was a
All we did
gift. I just
have
wanna
to do
remind
is we
everybody
paid
of
for
that.
engineering to provide for the alignment.
yeah, and I just want to remind everybody, that was a pretty good gift right there.
ready to go to item number 6, which is presentation discussion about the draft right-of-way plans for the Liberty Pike and North Royal Oaks Boulevard, Mallory Lane intersection improvements. And I kind of got a lot of nods from what Eric requested, so we'll see something in the future.
So you got some nods.
I don't know whether they're going to
That
sleep or what they're doing, Clyde.
Dozing off there, right?
I was looking at you when I was looking at
There's lots of possible
Lonnie.
explanations.
So when this project was approved, obviously we have 4 new aldermen. I would like to walk through the history of it, and just so you know how we got here, and then I'm going to ask Jonathan can go through the plans. And again, this is a check-in. We're at a point with this project where we have been given the authority to buy right away. We've been told to buy right away. but we always want to check in with you before we start acting.
And we're getting ready to have, should you say, okay, start having some public meetings with folks to
That's the
talk
next
about
step.
what's coming. And we want to touch base with you before we go down that path.
Yeah, had a lot of fun writing this memo. This was interesting.
Yeah, he did a really good job with the memo. So it's really started with big development in the Cool Springs area. There were 3 large developments that happened. They did a joint traffic study, showed failure in the existing condition today, and showed really extreme failure as these developments happen. And so that's what really initiated it. And it initially, staff proposed it just to be a signalized intersection. We were going to do 2 through lanes, double left turn lanes, and a single right turn lane on all approaches, with the thought process being that we don't ever want to have to come back and revisit an intersection, which I seem to continuously do throughout my career. So we started the design in 2016 is when the board gave us the funding. And in about January of 2018, we received draft right-of-way plans. We did what we're doing now, brought those plans to the board. We ultimately took it to a public hearing to engage some of the residents to get feedback on, do you want sidewalks? Do you want multi-use trails? Give us your feedback on it. And what it led to was there was a lot of individuals that were upset with the impact that a signalized intersection has on your property. And so we got into a big roundabout discussion, and we asked the residents if they wanted to see a roundabout, which the majority of them came back and said, yes, we would like to see a roundabout.
I looked at the things and it said it was not.
And my memory tells me it was majority of them, and that's
Yep, got it there.
44?
Yeah.
I didn't know, because it's don't add to 100.
No, because everyone didn't respond on everything.
Okay, so
That's why the numbers don't add up to 100. Everyone didn't respond on every one of the questions for all the surveys.
But I will say, for memory, being there, the majority of the people that were there that responded seemed to want that. And that's when we brought it back to the board and said, we got this new idea, do you even want to pursue a roundabout? And what ultimately what we were directed to do was to look at 4 different options. An ultimate built-out signalized intersection, which is what staff had originally proposed. And then we looked at a minimal signalized intersection and an optimized signalized intersection and the roundabout. And so we brought in an expert from Kimley Horn to help us with that, and to also supplement Volkert, our other consultant. So we had 2 consultants that came in, and they looked at all the different level services. I don't know if you
Yeah, I can pull that up.
pull that up real quick.
Be glad to.
And the roundabout, from an engineering standpoint, from our consulting experts, essentially did significantly better than the signalized intersection. And that's why you see some cities, some DOTs, have what's called a roundabout first policy. 1, because they don't want the maintenance of the traffic signal, and 2, history or the traffic analysis, the roundabout almost always wins. Sometimes there's imbalances with the roundabout that makes it a poor option, but they generally will win if you compare them capacity-wise. This
was one of these separate exhibits. This was one of the last exhibits in the list.
So in 2019, ultimately, the board directed us to proceed with the roundabout design. Jonathan put a right-of-way chart in the memo, which I thought was really good. The roundabout actually purchases 0.7 acres less than an signalized intersection. And the roundabouts typically have a pretty large footprint right at the intersection, but they don't have all the approach lanes that go with it. And so this is a reduction of it. Now, the other concern that we kept hearing about was getting out of Stanwick Drive.
Stanwick.
Stanwick, thank you.
Yep.
And the roundabout also resolved that issue. And I'm just trying to bring up history of why the board did what they did, because it accommodates a U-turn. So, long story short is the project stands at about $21 million. That's assuming you still want to do both roundabouts. And to summarize it, there are a lot of benefits associated with roundabouts. Reduced crashes, it's fewer conflict points. It substantially reduces injury crashes, reduces speed, improves level of service, facilitates U-turn, no signal maintenance. And so there's a lot of reasons why at the time the board chose to go that route. But I'm going to let Jonathan walk you through the construction plans, the impacts that it has on property owners, and then we're open to feedback that you have.
All right.
As you get started, can you tell us what supplemental document that is, so we can pull it up as well?
Yes, it is actually the one labeled excerpt. It's the smallest set, it's the one actually for draft plans, but it's the one labeled excerpt, yes. It's the second attachment. Because you've got the full plans, but those are, it's like 200 pages, too big. But I wanted to give you the whole set of plans in case you wanted to, you know. You don't have the color version. This is something I worked on, but this is the excerpt. It's the same set of plans you've got. It's just I've worked on something to kind of for the exhibit tonight to show you a colored version. Yeah. Yeah, this is page 11 of the PDF if you want to follow along. And actually, let me, I'll just start down on the actual sections of the roadway. This is the overall project. This is actually page 20 of the PDF. This just shows the whole project at zoomed out level. Basically that big pink blob that you're seeing that I'm kind of zoomed out on right there, the pink area is the existing drainage easement that's on those properties where there's a large concrete ditch that's existing there. There's already a very large permanent drainage easement there that you can't really do anything in. So that's something to be aware of that is already there today. So that's not something we're acquiring, but I did want to make everybody very aware that that's already there today. So any kind of drainage improvements that need to be made in that area, we can already do those today without purchasing anything. So the red areas, and just kind of housekeeping issues, the red areas are actually proposed right away, so we purchased those fee simple. The green areas are slope easements. That's where we're changing the slope, and we'll buy those as typically as temporary. The orange areas are construction easements. Those are temporary as well. And the blue areas are drainage easements. Those are permanent. And then the purple lines are right-of-way and property lines. All right, let me zoom back out. All right, so let's start right here. So starting at the beginning of the project, and I will get there in just 1 second, and I will start on, let's see, this is the proposed, yes, the proposed sheet. And what I will do, this is sheet 24. So what I'm showing is the proposed layout, so it's what the road will look like when it's done, with the same colors that I showed earlier superimposed on top of that, just to kind of show where the right-of-way and easement takes would land on that, so I can kind of explain that as I'm going through. And really, this is where the roadway ties in and ends the project, right past, I can't remember what the name of that little, it's where that newer subdivision is with like half a dozen houses or so. It's right past that where we tie in.
Cross Mill Court.
There you go, Cross Mill Court. But this is where we tie in the sidewalk, and actually what we ended up compromising on here was, I believe we went down to, actually we're a 6-foot sidewalk at this point, because we had originally proposed a multi-use trail on one side and a sidewalk on the other. We went ahead and just, since there was sidewalk on both sides on Liberty Pike, we just stayed with the sidewalk and pretty much kept the sidewalk. We did go ahead and go to a 6-foot sidewalk since it's our standard now, but we kept the sidewalk, and just to keep it consistent with what's on Liberty Pike. You can see there's very little actual right-of-way take here. It's just a small sliver at the north side. There are some slope easements for the cut fill. And again, this is the beginning section is just where we're widening out the roadway to get to the full 4-lane section with a very narrow median that begins here at the end. This is a concrete median at the end. And the reason for the concrete median here is it's just to divide the roadway as you approach the roundabout at Stanley Drive.
Sorry, just for clarification, this is slide 24. Currently, if we'll call that northbound, turning into where those 6 houses are, you can currently turn into either side.
I believe so.
I don't think they have it set up
I don't think they have
one
it
way.
set, yeah, no, there's not one.
Okay. And it will stay that way as well, correct?
That's correct. There will actually be a dedicated turn lane here, or there'll be
Well, there's 3 lanes right there in front of
Yeah.
that anyway.
and there'll still be a striped off wide turn lane there. You'll still be able to turn in there. Yes. It won't be a dedicated turn lane, but it'll be, you know, a center turn lane.
It's a through-lane road today, it'll remain.
Yeah. Come on.
Just so, where are we going with, are you gonna, the end all, we're getting into the details, and I appreciate that, but what is the ultimate ask? So as I'm listening to this, I know that I'm thinking about what it is you're ultimately asking us to.
Right now, we
to
have a
weigh in on.
resolution in place this is the design that's in place. We know there was some concern on potentially whether we want to continue with the roundabouts or not. We just wanted to bring that back, let you know that the next step for us would be to head to a public meeting and get input at a public meeting. If there's any other input the board wants to give at this time before we go to a public meeting. Otherwise, we would go to public meeting, take those requests, and then move to right-of-way.
Thank you.
But the design is,
We're at draft right-of-way plans. So we're ready to go to public meeting, integrate any comments, and then purchase right-of-way.
okay. We're done with the design. Okay.
We know that, that's just how it's
So approaching Stanwick Drive, you can actually see where the cursor's at here. This is the concrete median I was discussing earlier. It's a very narrow median. So you've got 2 lanes on either side, and you're approaching Stanwick Drive, the roundabout here at Stanwick Drive.
Okay, so riddle me this. What about the apartment ingress and egress? Is there gonna be a concrete thing where they can only make a right in?
Yes. We'll get to that here in a moment.
Sorry about that.
Well, no, you're good. One of the things, and you'll see this down at the bottom where we're requiring the right-of-way, and that was one of the questions that we had, was on these properties, that we are requiring a significant chunk of right-of-way on there's houses in Liberty Hills subdivision. We're requiring a pretty significant chunk of right-of-way and easements on those houses. However, I went ahead and showed the existing drainage easement, just for clarification, to show that they already have that platted on their properties, so they really can't do anything in that property. They can use it, it's their property, they can use it as yard, but as far as constructing anything in it, you can't do anything with it. So what we would be doing to build these improvements would be, and it's kind of hard to say that under the colors, we would actually be constructing a box culvert, and that stream would actually be in a box culvert underneath the roundabout. And we had our designer push the box culvert as far as they could underneath the intersection of the roundabout intersection to keep that box culvert as far away from the residents as possible. That allows us to maintain as much yard as possible for them. So that basically gets the culvert out of their backyards, even though we are purchasing and acquiring a significant portion of their backyards. So they won't have the culvert in their backyards anymore, they have a culvert, but they don't have a ditch in their backyard anymore. And then the green areas and the orange areas, while we would use those during construction, they would get those back after construction. So they would then be able to put their fences back at the edge of where the red's at.
Right.
Correct. They would be able to put their fences back, well, yeah, technically they're supposed to put them back down here, but as you can see already today, they've actually got fences well into the drainage easements. And all the way down into here. If you look at it on an aerial, they're very much encroaching into the drainage easement.
Yeah, there'll be disruption during construction, but they'll be able to put that fence right back about where it is today.
Yes.
And for clarification, will the resident be responsible for reinstalling their fence, or would that be something?
We would put it back in as a part of the project. Now, in the future, if it has to come down for drainage, they would be responsible for it. But with the project, we would go ahead and do it because that's a minimal ask for us during the project.
Okay.
Let's see. And basically what I'm doing is jumping 4 sheets at a time to the proposed sheets. So you've got your present layout sheets, you've got your right-of-way detail sheet, and I'm jumping 4 sheets every time just to stay consistent. So this is the other end of the box culvert. So we were building the box culvert and connecting to the existing ditch. So we basically are leaving the rest of the ditch into the pink drainage easement in place. And this is the property line where my cursor is at, where it connects to the Royal Oaks Apartments complex. I think Vieira, I believe is the name of it.
The good news about a roundabout is if you want to make that left turn, you just make a right turn, go around the roundabout, and go the other way.
And the question came up, what about the access points? And I'll go ahead and do CVS and on the apartment complex. Here's the median where my cursor's at. We have to have the median for the approach to the roundabout. We don't want to have vehicles doing cross movements there when you're already having to get into a roundabout to decide which lane you want. We want people to pay attention to which lane they're getting in. We don't want people to have to worry about people trying to cross over in front of them. That's already dangerous today, so this eliminates that in the future. What you would do, as Paul just said, you would go to one of the roundabouts to make the U-turn and come back to it. You would go to either one of the roundabouts. There's one at Stanwick to the west, and there's one, the main roundabout, to the east. And on this section right here, actually on the Royal Oaks Apartments, we're not acquiring any right-of-way in this particular section on this sheet. And again, we're acquiring some to the north, these slivers to the north. Maybe 35. So this gets us to the main roundabout. Oh, and I will jump back one little sheet and show. This is back to 31, so this is the sheet I was just on. We do have, one of the ways we eliminated one of the crossings at Stanwick Drive, so we were able to eliminate a pedestrian crossing at Stanwick and a pedestrian crossing at the main roundabout at Royal Oaks by combining that pedestrian crossing to a mid-block crossing between the two roundabouts. And the reason we did that was to not have two pedestrian crossings that close together. And we also added proposed ped shelters for a transit stop at that location. So we integrated a transit stop and did one mid-block crossing, which we would then put up RRFB, so that's the flashing yellow lights with we really enhanced the crossings is what I'm getting at.
Assuming this road is 2 lanes?
It's 2 lanes in
at
both
that
directions,
point?
that's
Okay,
correct.
so the transit stop's not going to obscure or permanently stop that flow of traffic?
No, sir.
Okay.
So this gets us to the roundabout at Royal Oaks, and this is where you see we do have some acquisition at the actual intersection of Royal Oaks and Mallory Lane to the north. And this is one of the trade-offs between the roundabouts and the original intersection, and where you saw very similar acquisition totals. You trade having the impacts at the intersection of Mallory Lane and Royal Oaks. There were major impacts there with widening all the approaches to 7 lanes. There were a lot of right-of-way takes there. When you went to the roundabout option, you ended up pushing those impacts to other areas. So we ended up pushing those impacts further down the roadway. So when we added the roundabout to Stanwick Drive to allow access out of Stanwick Drive, to allow more free access out of Stanwick Drive, that then pushed more impacts down to those property owners to the south. So you kind of squeeze the balloon one way or the other, and that's really where you just kind of push those impacts around.
There's
Yes,
a median there.
there's a median there as
But there's-
well.
But there, how are
That
they
one does
going-
not have a U-turn to the
That's
east
right.
side. To the west
east-
side, yes.
Yeah, that's right, to
That's
the west
correct.
side, but to the east side, what are you gonna do if you wanna come out and turn?
So what you would do there is you would just go down to Royal Oaks, because this side of the apartment complex has an access point onto Royal Oaks and onto Liberty Pike. So they would just go through the parking lot and come out on Royal Oaks if they want to go a different direction. Correct.
Then they can come out of there, then they can turn left.
Correct. They would just go around the roundabout and turn left.
Could you ever, on the other side of the interstate,
I see what you mean.
there's that, is it Huffines Ridge? No. Is there, just thinking down the line, would that intersection ever be a potential roundabout on the other side of the interstate?
Stanwick's twin.
Like down,
Could
yeah,
be.
down the line?
Yeah, could
I mean, not any, you know.
I mean, Yes, it could be. And yes, we would look at
Look at that
roundabouts
at
at
that
every.
I mean, that's something you
Because
can
that
look
would
at in the
solve
future.
this.
But also, for now, you could look at turning out on, that's the good thing is the apartment complex has 2 access points on a corner.
Jonathan, you're not carrying the median further south on Royal Oaks, are you?
Yes, we have to carry it part of the way south, and I'll
You'll get there?
I will
Okay.
get there. Yeah, we pretty much have to carry the median on all approaches to the roundabout just to keep, yeah, it just to kind of funnel people in, make them pay attention to the lane usage. And then our project stops essentially at the interstate right-of-way, and there's really not much take there. It's really temporary easements, what we're doing on the school side. And for the most part, we're going up a hillside there. We're just tying the hill in, is what we're doing. So there's really not a whole lot of, and for the most part, that's 4 and 5 lanes today. I think it's 4 lanes with bike lanes. So there's not a substantial difference on that section. And this is south of, this is on Royal Oaks. So we do have a short median, but this is just south of the roundabout, and this is the main access to the apartments on Royal Oaks. So this has a 2-way left turn lane in the middle. So they do have full access here. So they can turn left or right, either one there. So we do shorten that median there on that end.
In some of those places that come out into Royal Oaks, just to the south.
Well, the good thing is it won't be when we're done because we're going to clear all that.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
And then you can see the red, it's pretty split evenly on both sides with the actual right-of-way take. You can see the 2 red lines or the 2 red areas. There is some more construction easement and slope easement on this one side, on the right-hand side.
And what page is
We're
this?
still up there, okay.
What page is this?
This is page 43 of the PDF.
That's what I'm trying to get to, but
And again, I'm jumping 4 pages
No,
at
but
a time
I'm
to
saying
stay
that-
on the,
No, I know, but mine won't bring it up. It's just spinning, yeah, thank you.
and now we are on Mallory Lane. I think I jumped too far.
You see why I'm not an engineer. Pages and pages.
I got to 37, then 38 would go past it.
Ah, that's Royal Oaks, okay, that's Royal Oaks. Okay, this is further north on Royal Oaks, okay. So this gets up to the median on Royal Oaks. Yeah, we weren't done with Royal Oaks yet. So this gets to the median on Royal Oaks. You can see the end of the nose of the median where my cursor's at. There we go, there's Mallory Lane. So this is just north of the roundabout on Mallory Lane. Let me get to the proposed sheet. So this is, for the most part, what's out there today. You're gonna have, you've got your lanes, laneage that's out there today. You've got, except you'll have 2 through lanes. So you'll have 2 lanes entering the roundabout, and you'll have a right turn bypass lane. So the reason you're seeing most of the acquisition on the west side of the roadway is we're adding at the roundabout that one right turn bypass lane because we expect the heavy movement there to be back into town. So we're adding a right turn bypass lane. And I can jump back a few sheets and show you what that looks like. This is the right turn bypass lane.
Where are the pedestrian crossings on that?
When I get to the, when I get to the striping, I'll show you what those look like.
Yeah, we gotta do that,
And really, this extends a substantial distance. This is the main entrance off of Mallory Lane, so the median's already there today. This extension for the right turn bypass lane, we extend that right turn lane substantially. It goes past the entrance to the CVS. There's a combined entrance there today. It goes all the way past that combined entrance for the right turn lane. So we really extend that right turn lane substantially. It actually goes further back to the north than what the left turn pockets do. What everybody really wanted to see is this. This is the striping plan. So we're starting at the initial section of the project where you're starting at 3 lanes at Liberty Pike. This is where it widens, starts to widen out and taper. So you've got your 2-way left turn lane here, so it's still 3 lanes, and it lets folks still turn in here legally and stay out of the actual travel lanes. And there's where your median begins. And you start into your roundabout. And we actually added a detail in the, I picked up on this, one of the seminars I've been in a while ago, and one of the details we're going to put in the truck apron is actually the directional arrows in the truck apron to kind of help people, remind them of which direction to go around. It'll surprise you that you still get people that don't want to go the right way. But asking about the pedestrian crossings, so we're not proposing one on this side of the roundabout, on the west side of the roundabout at Stanwyck, but we are proposing one, of course, at the subdivision side on the north side, at Stanwyck Drive itself. And then where I talked about combining the crosswalk, you notice there's not one at the roundabout at Stanwyck across Liberty Pike, but we do have the mid-block here where there will also be, again, the transit stops.
I just want to make a note. I printed these out because I thought it would be very helpful. Here's a great example of how the roundabouts move the pedestrian walkways way back, away from the roundabout. So I thought it might be a good visual.
And actually, ours will actually move that even further back with this
Yeah,
mid-block
For
crossing.
yours will be back,
Yes.
down here.
And actually, if you notice, what we've also done is the striping will actually have yield striping in place to kind of enhance and tell drivers where to stop when that flash, we'll stop them even further away from that
And the
crosswalk.
flash will be right there, yeah.
Well, the flashing will be at the crosswalk itself because you want the pedestrian buttons to activate
Yeah.
there, but
Right,
we'll
because
actually
it's
have
all
warning
active-
signs further back as well.
All activation, yeah.
And this one is an error. This one actually won't, sorry, they flipped the page on me on this one, sorry. This is on the approach. Northbound is, actually, no, they didn't flip on this one. So this one is actually shown an error here. This crosswalk won't exist. He shouldn't have included this one. Yeah, that one won't exist. Yeah.
You've got,
So that's no,
yeah.
so, okay.
So this one, the one right here on Liberty, that one to the west won't exist. That, because we're combining that one with the one at the mid-block.
Mid-block.
The other ones will exist around there. And somebody was asking me, I think Ann was asking me earlier today about the crossings. And if you'll notice, you're only ever crossing a max of 2 lanes at any given time.
So if you're walking home from school, you're gonna have to, on this other side, you're gonna have to go, and if you wanna go to this side of apartment complex, or keep walking down, you have to go halfway up the block and then come over to continue going south.
Well, if you're coming across the school, you would just stay on the side of the school that
On
you're
the
already
right-hand
on and just
side.
come straight across.
Or you could just go the other way. Okay, I see. You can just go around the circle. All right, thank you.
Yep. And you can see better here the right turn bypass lane as it approaches the intersection. This is actually the right turn lane that allows,
And Jonathan, if the 3 crosswalks are safe enough and satisfactory where they are at that intersection, why is the 4th one not?
it's not that it's not safe where it's at, we just, having those 2 roundabouts that close together and knowing that this is going to be a very, very busy roundabout, and one of the things we were really worried about was making sure that traffic had an ample opportunity to get out of Stanwyck Drive. We didn't want one additional complication of having drivers have to stop in the roundabout, having to watch for pedestrians exiting that particular leg of the roundabout. So we wanted to actually go ahead and move that one conflict point further down in the roundabout. So we moved that to mid-block. So it actually lets drivers coming out of that main roundabout not have to worry about pedestrians on that specific leg of the
So
roundabout.
the second roundabout's what creates
The main
that.
road, that's
Yeah,
correct.
got it, thank you.
Alderman Potts?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Jonathan, on that one right there, what you're saying is if you'll put your mouse on the one that you're removing, that should not be on the diagram.
This one.
Correct. Now, if you go up and to the right, we'll call that the north, that one right there. As you talk about moving it away because of how busy the intersection is there any benefit of moving that? And I'm going to guess it's maybe 50, 75 yards north of that to where the current school zone lighting is activated, right there where it gets to people to slow down to, what is it, 10, 15 miles an hour?
I would probably not move it with the school zone lighting, just because people get too used to seeing the school zone lighting, and they would mistake that school zone lighting and think, oh, they only use that crosswalk when the school's in.
And really, they're supposed to have, they do have a police officer that's out there during those peak
So I don't
hours,
want to
too.
mix those two things
Yeah.
together and get people associating those two together, because you really want, we know it's going to be a busy intersection anyway.
The police officer is actually at the at the entrance of the school, at the two entrances of the school. I was just thinking about where the school light is, but, okay. You guys are the experts on that.
Really, the main thing we want to do is get enough distance between these yield bars and the crosswalks to allow enough vehicles to sit between those, so the vehicles are not overhanging the crosswalks, and it allows enough vehicles to sit there where they can freely enter the roundabout and not have to worry about conflicts with pedestrians. So you're really looking at the roundabout itself and the vehicles, the number of movements you've got at the roundabout, and so like Bev was showing earlier, if you want to move them back further, the really only reason you would move the crosswalks back further is if you have really substantial movements at the roundabout that you think you're going to have more vehicles backed up queuing, wanting to enter the roundabout at all times. Then you would probably look at wanting to move in those crosswalks back further, because you would want to stack more vehicles to enter that queue quickly. So that's really where you want to think about doing that.
Does the design professional address that sufficiently in your viewpoint?
Yes, he has looked at this substantially. That's
Yeah.
probably one of the reasons it took so long to get back to where we were at, is
Yeah,
he was
because-
tweaking every little design detail.
Yeah, because
And
I-
that's why we wanted to bring him on board initially, was to bring
Yeah.
a peer review on board to make sure that we were
Yeah,
doing this
'cause
appropriately.
I specifically requested that he was working with a lot of different roundabouts that had been near schools. So I wanted to make sure that he was addressing that sufficiently.
And this shows also, this is the Royal Oaks approach. So you can see the median's fairly short on the Royal Oaks approach, but we did crosshatch off most of that median. So the only, so that it's paved right here, but then further south, you've got that dedicated left turn lane in, which is just off the sheet, that turns into the Royal Oaks apartments. So there is a dedicated left turn lane in for the apartments. It is sheet 58, it's the striping. And then also on the Liberty Pike east of the roundabout, we still maintain the bike lanes as well. There's already bike lanes there today, so we still maintain those as well.
No, and I'm wondering if this doesn't need to come back again, so much information.
Really, I'll take any questions there are.
Well,
I won't get you into the utilities. You don't want to,
I guess I need to take the pulse of the board. This is a previous board decision, kind of like Long Lane was. And, again, I would say that I'm not a big fan of revisiting things unless there's major things that we need to consider. I think my question to the board right now is, we've got about 15 minutes till the next meeting. Would you want to ask questions now or bring it back at another time? I don't think we're going to make it to Alderman Berger's number 7. So I need some direction. What you want to do?
Well, I guess I don't know why we spent 30 minutes on stuff that we're not allowed to have an opinion on. So if
Certainly,
well, I just say-
that's why I'm asking.
Well, I'm just saying, let's not bring it back. If previous boards have voted on stuff, then let's, and we're not going to revisit, then let's not revisit. I don't have a strong opinion on this one, and I'm sure I should. The only thing I would have a question on is I would love to know the only concern I really have is I'd love to know where roundabouts are used in proximity to a school as close as this is. It's a lot of students coming out of there. I would just love to know where there are some examples of that at least allay some fear that I have of, 2,000 kids coming out of a parking lot into a roundabout and what that looks like. Other than that, there's smart data there. There's people smarter than me that know roundabouts, so I don't necessarily have a strong opinion. But if I'm allowed to ask a question and ask for safety data, I'd love to see it near a school.
We can do that.
Alderman Blanton, and then I'll get Alderman Berger.
So for the four of you who were not on this board when we decided on this, and I'm not going to belabor it, it's kind of become a joke between Paul and Jonathan and even Bev and I live in this area off Stanwick Drive for the last 25 years of my life. I know this area very well. I'm not in favor of a roundabout and retrofitting a roundabout in this dense of a populated area, especially when you're talking about almost 2,000 children who are either learning to drive or walking around this intersection. I know that we had public hearings. I know that there wasn't a lot of support at that time, and I appreciate the opportunity to even revisit this. I know I'm probably going to be way late again. It's fine. I cannot live with myself. Saying this is okay with me when I know in my heart there's going to be a loss of life. I'm not predicting that on anybody, but that's how important it is to me. I appreciate that you move the crosswalks out. I think that's great. I appreciate that roundabouts are better solutions for land acquisition. I just cannot support this. So that's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say.
Right.
Go ahead, Alderman Berger.
Honestly, that's one of the reasons, one of the top reasons, besides moving traffic, that I support roundabouts, is the safety. And it'll be obvious when you bring that back, because there are many roundabouts that have been built near schools. Now, Carmel, Indiana, I know they're up to 148, I think, roundabouts. Maybe actually 150 by now, I think it is. And they have been very, very successful in that town. And they have made it a habit to do that, to, number one, move traffic and bring safety. And their stats are incredible when you look at the safety of roundabouts in pedestrians and in traffic accidents. You're talking about 100,000. I'll just give them as an example. You know, I'll pick on them because they do have a lot of roundabouts. But we have a lot of other examples, especially Indiana has a lot of roundabouts. Florida has the most roundabouts of any state. And their stats in safety is extremely high. But if you go down and you look at the different accidents, you know, you go from the percentage of populations versus the total injuries, you're down at 0.2 for 1 year from all the way up to 1.42%, and it goes up higher and higher. One of the things in roundabouts, when you get, and I want to speak to this because I really don't like revisiting these, because we went through a lot to get to this. And if we did the intersection with the light, we had to put up, with 6-foot walls, Paul? Was it 6-foot walls
Yes,
along there?
6 to 8 foot
6
walls.
to 8 foot walls all up and down Royal Oaks. And that was just, like Dana McLennan said, that's just not happening. We can't do that. And, but if you look at the roundabouts, the crashes in roundabouts, do they happen? Absolutely, like any place in town, but you're not T-boning people, and the death rate in a roundabout is extremely small versus a intersection. So that's number one. Number two, and the accidents are a lot less because the speed is a lot less in a roundabout. But the thing I thought about, and Brandy's absolutely right, she brings up a very serious question about the safety. And that's why I asked you, when we hired the gentleman out of Atlanta to do this, that his experience, he had roundabout experience all over the place, especially with schools being in the area, and how you make sure that honestly, what we've got proposed is a heck of a lot safer than we've got there today. Because you have cars, even with red lights, turning on right turn lanes all the time down there. And I travel this road probably multiple times a day, and I see this happening all the time. And I really respect, Brandy, your opinion on this, but I also don't want to over carry that to be that this is going to be worse. Because we have to make it safe, and pushing the roundabout, pushing the walkways, the crosswalks back and signalizing them so it stops, so these kids actually have an opportunity to cross when all traffic and all lanes are stopped, versus people still cutting around and doing right-hand turn lanes at intersections with a light. So I have a lot of different things I could share with you. It's getting late. I brought some other things, but I will just say accidents with injuries certainly decrease about 80% in roundabouts that replace and do replace traditional intersections. Helps drivers, and it saves a lot of fuel. It said just in a year, 272 tanker trucks had fuel savings per year that was astronomical over the trucking industry. And just look at the car industry as well. They're environmentally friendly, less idling for cars, less gas being burned in the atmosphere, and better fuel economy, and no traffic lights and installation, and the constant maintaining in perpetuity for intersection lights. So those are some of the things I really seriously looked at when I was championing this roundabout. Do roundabouts belong everywhere? Absolutely not. There's just different places that I wouldn't even bother to even champion or say that we needed them. But I think if we are serious about moving traffic and getting rid of gridlock and looking at the future 10, 15, 20, 50 years down the road, I think that we have to look at this, because these busy intersections, if you go to Europe, go to DC, you go to Florida, you have major intersections that are very busy. And you have a lot of walkability around those intersections, around those roundabouts as well. So I appreciate if you bring us some of those stats back, too. Thanks.
Alderman Caesar.
If anything, I think we all feel the safety component here. And I would ask for us to study the proximity of the pedestrian crossings, because certainly there's going to be some fender benders at the roundabout. I think the data is fairly well established on lack of T-bones, and so fewer fatal crashes at intersections with roundabouts. But I think the concern is, if I'm a new driver trying to figure out which is the brake and the gas, and I'm trying to get into the right lane, and then I see a flashing yellow, can I be attentive enough to not impact a pedestrian that's in that right away? I think the ask for me would be for us to have this engineer, with the fact that there is a high level of people. I mean, I drive down Liberty all the time and see kids and adults walking up and down the sidewalk. It's my expectation that that light's going to be flashing a lot. Would there be a benefit? Understand what you said earlier about not getting it too close to the school zone for confusion purposes, but I would love to see us give kids a little bit more time, and drivers, new drivers especially, a little bit more time to think about somebody potentially coming across the road in front of them before they have to make a decision on which lane they're getting into. Just explore the safety there, and it might make me feel a little more comfortable.
Take a look at it.
Alderman Potts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Two quick items here. And Alderman Blant and I completely empathize with that. All three of my kids have or are attending Centennial, and they've all learned to drive in this area, and it is challenging. And that was the first thing I thought about, is I want to make sure that as we go to implement, if this move forward, implement it, et cetera, I want to make sure that Centennial has some type of supplemental materials, or it's added to their driver safety program when those kids have to get their tag to be able to park in the parking lot, that they have some type of educational requirement that, you know, just give it to the school. I know we can't require it, but it helps. All right. And then the second thing I want to ask is, what's the time frame for from the first shovel hitting it until it's done?
This is at least 2 years, at least.
Okay.
With right-of-way acquisition.
Well, no, I'm talking about for construction.
Oh, yeah, construction-wise, yeah.
All right.
2 years of right-of-way acquisition, and then we'll be looking to hopefully.
Yeah, my question was for the construction. Thank you.
Okay.
I might add to that, I've already spoken years ago and it was when Dr. Looney was here, but I've also spoken to Superintendent Golden about this, that we would put in a class for all new drivers and actually say, yeah, you really do need to take this. And I think we could do that very well. We've already talked about that. We've already talked about putting that in there. And really, you know, kids are, I know, new drivers are tough to deal with, but at the same time, their reactions as they become drivers are a little bit, you know, I'm more worried about a lot of the seniors, but a lot of the seniors have been traveling all over the world too and driving, and so we have a little bit of both.
I will say that we do plan to work with the school. All three of my kids will go to Centennial, and I don't worry about them. They can adapt quicker than I can at my age, let me say that. I have to work harder at it.
Everybody good? See you shortly. We're adjourned.